You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
There was a Twitter hashtag today that I'm going to need to press Sam Dykstra on to open up the 37th edition of Minor League Baseball's The Show Before the Show podcast. Hi, everybody. I'm Tyler Mon. He's Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler.
Star Wars baseball
Star Wars
jokes.
Day to you, I should say. If this is going how I think it's going.
Give me your favorite Star Wars baseball joke.
My favorite.
Those were flying on Twitter today.
I could give you the favorite one I had.
Okay.
How do I, let me get this absolutely right here.
Got to get the wording correct.
Yeah.
It's a lot of wordplay, a lot of puns.
Right. Well, I guess it's to you. So, like, how do I think the princess/general should reach first base? She should lay a bunt down. We don't have fancy sound effects, but just imagine. Yeah. All right. I just had two, but
okay.
What's a good nickname for Yoenis Cespedes? Yo, duh.
I like how somebody responded to that with boo.
Yeah, see, that was my roommate, which makes it look all the worse. It's just like he knows that's my humor, and yeah.
Yo, duh.
Duh.
So welcome in. It is obviously mid-December around the world of minor league baseball.
Roaring start.
We're off to it. We're screeching out of the gates here. But no, welcome into the 37th edition of the Show Before the Show. Tyler, Sam, we are gonna be jam-packed today, as we are from week to week. It feels like one of the big names around the world of minor league baseball in the last week. Aaron Blair, now of the Atlanta Braves organization, will join the show. Aaron Blair, part of the contingent that the Arizona Diamondbacks shipped to Atlanta in exchange for Shelby Miller. This is going to be an interesting one because we get a chance to hear from the traded side what it's like. We've talked a lot about the Touki Toussaint deal. We never got a chance to talk to Touki about that, so we'll kind of hear from Aaron's perspective what this last week has been like for him, traded along with Dansby Swanson and Ender Inciarte to the Atlanta Braves to give the Braves that one of those front lines, or to give the Diamondbacks rather, one of those frontline starters that they'll ride into the 2016 season in Shelby Miller. So we'll talk with him. Aaron coming up here shortly. Benjamin Hill will join us after that. Going to look back on Ben's 2015 season with MILB.com and all the great work that he churned out, some of the highlights that'll be in his year in review story, which will be coming up on the site next week. But before we get to all that, let's get to all this. 3 strikes for episode number 37. We're going to kick things off with yet another big trade of prospects. A 3-team deal. This is just yesterday. We're recording this on Thursday the 17th. Yesterday, once more, a big swap goes down in which a lot of prospects move places. Let's let the Los Angeles Dodgers Twitter account take us through it. Quote, Dodgers have completed 3-team trade with Reds and White Sox. Dodgers receive right-handed pitcher Frankie Montas, outfielder Trace Thompson, and second baseman Micah Johnson. Subsequent tweet, Reds receive infielder Jose Peraza, outfielder Scott Schebler, and minor league infielder Brandon Dixon. White Sox receive third baseman Todd Frazier. Let's get Todd Frazier just out of the way really quickly, because I think a lot of people are confused as to how he would be the centerpiece of a deal after the way he started last year for the Reds, like what the Reds' approach to this is. Let's just look at Todd Frazier's numbers pre- and post-All-Star break. He was the starting third baseman in Cincinnati for the National League All-Star team. Pre-break last year, 284 average, 337 on-base percentage, 585 slugging percentage. That's a 922 OPS, 25 homers, 57 runs batted in. Post-All-Star break, 220 average, 274 on base percentage, 390 slugging percentage. That's a 664 OPS, 10 homers, 32 runs batted in. So the Reds ship a guy out with a pretty decent value who really collapsed over the second half last year. They get a trio of prospects in return. But I think, and Sam, you noted this in the story yesterday, what really stands out here is the Dodgers haul.
Yeah, for sure. One thing to kind of note on Todd Frazier, he did win the home run derby at home. And people have done research before on how much, going for it all in a home run derby like that can affect your second halves, and that was certainly something we saw with him. But yeah, to go back to your point,
and his home and road splits are rough too. 883
Right, yeah.
OPS at home, the kind of the bandbox at his Great American Ballpark in Cincy, 773 or 733 rather on the road.
Right. So there's all sorts of things that are going on with him, but we try to focus on the prospects. Everybody's going to break down Frazier to the White Sox. But yeah, the way this kind of worked from our viewpoint is that the Dodgers got 3 prospects and the Reds got 3 prospects. And for me, I would say just to weight them both, put them both on scales. We're talking about 3 prospects each. The Dodgers haul here is pretty impressive. For being people who were just roped into this deal. I mean, they didn't get anybody who, we would say is a major league talent immediately, at least, a headlining major league talent, certainly in the sphere of Frazier. But what they get is 3 really interesting prospects. The top headlining prospects in that kind of regard is Frankie Montas, just a fireball of a pitcher. Came over from the Red Sox in a trade for Jake Peavy a couple years ago. Eventually helped win them World Series, that trade. But he's really developed quite an impressive fastball. He can tickle triple digits. He normally sits mid 90s with it, but when he was in the Futures game last year, I think he hit 100 3 times. It was one of those things where everybody was just wowed by it. Scouts loved it. He's got a plus slider to go with that. There's a lot of talk, in kind of the scouting community and the baseball community at large, whether he's going to be a starter going forward or if he's going to be a reliever, just because he has that awesome stuff that plays up in short spurts. Did really, really well last year as a starter, at Double-A Birmingham, 5-5, 2.97 ERA, 108 strikeouts and 112 innings pitched, 219 average against. So, he was, everything you want to see out of a guy who was playing in his age 22 season at Double-A. The intrigue for me here is what are the Dodgers going to try to use him as? Obviously, he has the biggest potential value as a starter. But if they decide really that he is going to be, a reliever going forward, he could kind of fill that. I'm not saying it's a like for like swap, but they went after Aroldis Chapman and that deal fell apart. You put Montas in the bullpen, you don't have that, closer, issue that they were going to have with Kenley Jansen, who was going to pitch the 8th, who was going to pitch the 9th. Montas isn't going to expect to be a closer right away. He has that really, really good fastball, not quite Chapman's level, but really, really good. He would be a big help to their bullpen, I think, right away. If they decide he's going to be a starter, he would probably be sent to AAA Oklahoma City. So we'll have to see how they handle him. I still think his long-term viability is it as a starter. If you got a guy who's got starter stuff, he's got 2 very much clutch pitches, try to squeeze as much value as you can out of him. He becomes their number 4 prospect. Number 8 is Micah Johnson, another guy they got over. This is a guy who stole 80-plus bases just a couple of years ago, just has lightning fast speed. Kind of similar in Jose Peraza in that realm. They both got 75s on the 20-80 scale. Hit 315 at AAA last year. So it's, again, a kind of like-for-like swap. I don't think the Dodgers necessarily liked Peraza as much as a second baseman. Johnson has some, major league experience to him. Hasn't hit incredibly well in the majors, just 230 in 36 games last year. Is yet to go for a homer and only has the 3 steals in 36 games, but he could provide an interesting option for their infield, in which they have a couple guys who could play second, between Justin Turner and Enrique Hernandez. And then they also pick up Trace Thompson, who, really performed much better in a major league stint than any of us were thinking. He hit 295, 5 homers in 44 games, 363 on base percentage, 896 OPS. I mean, this was a guy whose OPS in the minors is in the low 700s, just outperformed himself in the majors. Kind of buying high on him. I don't think he's necessarily going to be that guy, but, again in the majors anytime soon. But the Dodgers already have a stacked outfield. Now they pick up another piece that, he can go back to AAA or, everybody else is talking about this. I'll be interested to see how it shakes out. These are just more assets for the Dodgers now. If they want to really go after Jose Fernandez from the Marlins, or if they decide, there's talk today about them being interested in Jake Odorizzi, who is a very good young pitcher, some controllable years left. They certainly have the pieces now to make it happen. Whether it's they immediately flip any of these 3 guys or they decide to hold on to them. The Dodger system already one of the strongest in the minors. gets even stronger with this trade, I think.
This is obviously the Dodgers offseason, somebody retweeted responses. The Dodgers tweeted out a holiday ticket deal, and the responses from the fan base were basically, no, you're terrible. This offseason has been awful. We're not buying tickets. I mean, this is a team that, for the last couple of years has been a piece away from a World Series, if not more. But their front office has been restructured. Obviously, Dave Roberts in there now as manager of that team for 2016. This is a much different approach to the offseason than we've seen from the Dodgers over the last few years. And I think the note about Montas maybe being that guy who fits in as the bullpen arm that the Dodgers lost out when the Aroldis Chapman deal fell through, which we don't even know what the circumstances are about that going forward. We were basically all informed that the deal had been put on hold while there was an investigation ongoing into the domestic violence incident with Aroldis Chapman. So that's a big question mark. This is a top-level acquisition of packaged minor league talent. I mean, the Dodgers should be very excited about what they got, but it's different than what we've seen from them going forward. And Sam, we were talking before we got into this segment. Right now, if you remove Corey Seager from the equation, he's our number 2 overall prospect in all baseball and the top prospect in the Dodger system. We know he's going to be in Los Angeles, if not to start the year, then very shortly thereafter. He's pretty well graduated. Behind him now, the top 5 prospects in the system are all pitchers, and one of those guys now, Montas, has been acquired via trade. 2 prospects beyond that top 5 is Micah Johnson, who's also included in this list, who's seen some big league time. By the way, apparently, if I named you an organization all-star this year, you're just destined to be moved somewhere. So my apologies to pretty much everybody, because it seems like at this point I've just cursed everyone into an offseason trade or a Rule 5 selection or whatever it is. But, I mean, this is a loaded system, which we've talked about with the Dodgers. They've got such an expensive major league club, but the minor league system is loaded in L.A.
Yeah, and that's what I think they really are going after right now, is just picking up these assets. I mean, we normally talk about assets in terms of the NBA, Celtics kind of that mode of just picking up first-round picks. But in baseball, when we talk about assets, we can talk about prospects, who are these ranked guys, top 100 guys. So it feels like there's another shoe about to drop. If not, they're just picking up this really cheap talent, and they can go spend their billions of dollars elsewhere. I mean, they have – Dodgers are sitting on all this money, lose out on Greinke because they weren't willing to spend it. So if they're going to try to just fill in all these options with young, controllable talent, imagine what's going to happen. Everybody talks about that class of 2018 free agent season. So maybe they're just setting themselves up to overspend there. But I think there's some other dominoes that are going to kind of fall in this. And just to kind of turn it back to the Reds too, because we don't want to make this just a Dodgers thing.
Definitely.
I have to say I am personally probably higher on Peraza than a lot of other people are. He's a guy who can hit for a good average. He's going to hit around 300, even in the majors, I think, once he gets to play there every day. Like I said, he's got 75 speed, can just burn around the base pass. Is certainly giving any team that he's going to have some value there. He's quick on his feet, so he should be okay at second base. There have been some issues there in the past, but then he can play some center field. Obviously, we know the Reds have a pretty good one right now in Billy Hamilton, arguably the fastest guy in the game. Kind of a side note, I would love to see those two in a 100-meter dash. I would pay, I would say at most $15, but like a movie ticket to see those two in a 100-meter dash. So that, they're getting something good there. Where I think this kind of falls apart is with, no offense to these guys, but Scott Schiebler and Brandon Dixon, the other 2 guys going to Cincinnati, they're not nearly as exciting for me personally, as Micah Johnson and Trace Thompson. So when we're talking about a 3-for-3 swap here, you have to compare, what the 3 on one side and 3 on the other side. And Schiebler and Dixon's kind of an older guy, who played Double-A last year. Schiebler was the Dodgers' 13 prospect at the time of the trade, hit 241 with 13 homers in 121 games at Triple-A. He has, he could hit double digits in homers and stolen bases, has some time in the majors. But, as far as the Reds go, I think there was probably a better package out there for Todd Frazier, but they must really like Jose Peraza, so they got their man there.
And it'll be a fascinating thing to watch where the Reds envision Peraza going forward. Started his professional career as a shortstop. As Sam noted, he had moved to second in the Braves organization. He's seen some time in the outfield. Is this the heir apparent to Brandon Phillips? What is the road forward now for Peraza? Behind that, I mean, you get 3 controllable minor league assets in exchange for 1 major league talent. I guess you could view it that way. But Todd Frazier was really pretty much a folk hero in Cincinnati, and so it is definitely one that I think the Reds will find a little bit difficult to sell to that fan base. But if Peraza plays out to the way that a lot of people think he can, then he may well make this deal worth it. I think beyond that, you're right, it's a little bit more of a question mark than what the Dodgers got in this deal. Strike two, another big trade piece that pretty much fell right after we recorded the last podcast, but we were all positive that the Philadelphia Phillies had acquired a big bat in Derek Fisher from the Houston Astros in the deal that really blew everybody's mind this last week when we found out that it wasn't Fisher going to Philadelphia. Instead, it was Mark Appel. So we've now had two former number one overall draft picks traded really over the last week, let's say. This deal, I think, really stunned everybody when it turned out to be Appel included in that. What do you think this says about Mark Appel, Sam? Because you and I have talked to him a bunch of times. Jake and I had him on the podcast, one of our very first episodes back in May. Rest in peace, Jake. And Appel is one of the best guys in baseball, one of the best attitudes. He's a very introspective guy, really, really studies himself and, what contributed to his struggles, especially with Class A Advanced Lancaster. Got himself back on track with AA Corpus Christi. Last year spent a lot of time with AAA Fresno, won not only the Pacific Coast League title, but the AAA championship with the Fresno Grizzlies, threw really, really well in the postseason. And, this is a two-time first-round pick. This is a guy who was selected first overall in a system that has really changed the game and the way you rebuild a farm system in the Astros organization. And I think there are a lot of people saying, man, look at the way the Astros whiffed on Mark Appel. I don't think the Astros see it that way. I certainly don't think that Mark Appel sees himself as damaged goods going to a new organization. But how do you view this? Because you trade him for a proven major league closer the Astros will get in Ken Giles. But on the other side, they gave up a lot in this deal, and giving up Mark Appel kind of took it to a new level.
Yeah, this went from just something like, oh, the Astros are using their depth. And, I like Derek Fisher. I think he's certainly, as you said, a good bat. He's somebody to be excited about, but he's not Mark Appel, who has that shine of being a number one overall pick and, a first round pick the year before that. So this went from, oh, the Astros made a nice trade to the Astros really dipped into their depth here and are kind of, I think, the idea is that they think they have so many arms in their system, so many good pieces that Appel, they are maybe that one closer away from being a very, very good team next year. We're seeing a lot of teams go after relief pitching this year.
It's like the new inefficiency.
Yeah,
building that strong bullpen.
Everybody's willing to pay through the nose for it. So that's a little bit of what the Astros are doing here. With Appel, the shine is still on him. It has not come off. I mean, you read the scouting reports on this guy. Right now, MLB.com, MLB Pipeline, 70 grade fastball, 60 grade slider, 55 grade changeup. They're all above average. And they even think his control is going to be slightly above average. And normally, control, if it's anything other than 50, it's, your ears should perk up, excuse me. He's just above average across the board, and he has that makeup. We like talking to him. He makes for a good quote. He makes for a good person to talk to. So it's kind of a cliche, but this is just like a new opportunity for him. It's something where, it's a change of scenery, which should almost become a hashtag in sports, just hashtag change of scenery. But, maybe this is something that it wasn't working out necessarily in the Astros system. He needed to work it out a little more. They were pushing him to AAA. Numbers weren't entirely great there, but it was in the PCL. So at this point, I think it's a new opportunity for him. It's a new chance. We'll see what happens when he moves to the IL. If these same numbers come up, then we can really start to question things. Maybe he becomes, kind of a guy like Andrew Miller or Dylan Betances, both with the Yankees now, but Miller was a highly touted prospect when he was drafted, and he ended up being traded, and then he became a reliever because he just couldn't quite stick as a starter. And Appel's stuff, if it's as good as everybody's saying, and we've seen it is as good as everybody's saying. If it's just not working as a starter, maybe he has that opportunity to become an elite closer himself. But the Phillies, for trading a reliever who's only going to pitch 60 innings, they got a really, really interesting piece here, and it's just another part of what they're doing as a rebuild.
That segues us perfectly into strike three this week. And Sam, you came up with this topic, and it's, I think, these are two teams that we would not have put in this conversation this time last year that are very much entrenched in this conversation now going into 2016. Who is doing the rebuild from scrap better at this stage? The Philadelphia Phillies, who, again, we would never have talked about in this way a year ago, or the Atlanta Braves, who we're going to discuss here a lot coming up just momentarily with Aaron Blair, formerly of the Arizona Diamondbacks organization, now a member of that Braves system. These are two teams that have a lot now in the pipeline coming forward in a division where you obviously need pitching based on what the Mets have, especially under control for the next few years, and the money that the Nationals have spent to build their rotation. Who is doing this better right now? Because you go back to the Phillies trade of Cole Hamels, you go back to the Braves trade in which they acquired Touki Toussaint. These two teams have been doing a lot, somewhat under the radar, I think, until the last month or so maybe, when teams are now really starting to look at that and say, man, look at what they're doing in Atlanta, look at what they're doing in Philadelphia. Who right now stands out to you more?
Yeah, and this, I mean, you bring up a good point in that I think this discussion, as we're having it today on Thursday, December 17th, is a snapshot of how it is now. I mean, these two teams can make other deals this offseason. Things could change very quickly. There's the draft coming up. I think the Phillies have the first overall pick. The Braves are at number 3, so that could change the complexion of how this is all going to kind of change going forward. How their rebuilds are going to go. But as things kind of stand right now, I would give the advantage to the Braves. And again, that would have changed a couple weeks ago, because after the Andrelton Simmons trade, and I broke down the numbers a little bit on our blog, I really was not a big fan of what they got for somebody who's so young, so controllable, and such a defensive wizard. But now, as we're painting a bigger picture with this Shelby Miller trade, what they were able to get from the D-backs, between Swanson and Blair and Inciarte, who's a defensive wizard himself in the outfield. What it feels like the Braves are doing is they're just picking up as many arms as they can, and they're all going to be upper levels, AA, AAA, knocking down that door between Newcomb, Blair, Tyrell Jenkins is the guy they picked up last year, who I really like. I think he could be a good back end starter, could even be a really, really good reliever. Really picked up the innings last year. Touki Toussaint's a little lower down. Manny Benuelos started for the team last year. Lucas Sims, was in the AFL this year. They're getting Max Fried back after he had some injury troubles. So what they're going to do is they're just going to get as many arms as they can. And 2-3 years down the line, they're just going to form this rotation that we're going to look at. And that guy was a top 100 prospect. That guy was a top 100 prospect. And they were all acquired via trades. And that's, I think you point out the Mets, and I think that's kind of how you have to do it now. If you can have a very solid rotation 1 through 5, even 1 through 6, 1 through 7, that you can trust anybody coming out on any given day, the other stuff will just kind of fall into place. And, Swanson, I think, might be my favorite player traded this offseason. So the fact that they got him, pushes them up even higher in this kind of discussion for me over the Phillies. I like what the Phillies did last year, getting, dipping into what was a very deep Ranger system, getting Jake Thompson, getting Nick Williams, Jorge Alfaro from the Phillies. J.P. Crawford is still in that system. He's going to come up at his own pace, could be a major leaguer next year. So they've set themselves up very well. I just really like the Braves' strategy right now of getting as many arms as possible.
This is a fun offseason. This has been a fun couple of weeks already, and I don't know why, but this offseason has the feel that, the winter meetings went down, and there were some moves, but it was sort of quiet, and then everything exploded with the big Shelby Miller trade, but it just feels like there's more on the horizon. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like there's going to be, I don't know, maybe that's just wishful thinking, because if I was going to do a Michael Caine impression now, like, some people just like to watch the world burn, and I think that's so fun over the offseason when there's massive deals, and we all get to freak out about them at the same time on Twitter. I don't know. This just it has the feel like there's more coming, and those are two organizations that have put themselves kind of at the forefront now. I think when you give a 5-year outlook, the National League East, let's say in this circumstance, it's going to look vastly different a couple of seasons from now, especially with the way the Braves are stockpiling arms, moving into a new ballpark, all that kind of stuff from what we've seen over them the last few seasons. I don't know. This just has the feel of a little bit more to come. There are, as Sam noted, there are some systems, guys who have been acquired who maybe are attractive in other packages going forward. Are the Dodgers making moves in order to try to make a bigger splash at the major league level with some of this talent they've now acquired at the minor league level? Who knows? But this really feels like there could be still more on the horizon, and maybe it's all Christmas wishful thinking. you know.
Yeah, well,
I want a big
think it was
present.
Ken Rosenthal who wrote a column on December 15th, and you mentioned how the Dodgers fans were all up in arms and we're not doing anything. It's December 15th. We still have 2 more months until pitchers and catchers. There's plenty of time left for these deals to be made. And again, what we're doing this on a weekly podcast, and this is a snapshot of the way things stand now. Next week, right before Christmas, a big trade could drop.
Right.
We're throwing this all up in the air, and we're talking about the Braves and Phillies versus somebody else. So there's still much more to come.
So, with that, we're going to wrap up Three Strikes for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. Hey, before we head into our interview with Aaron Blair, just wanted to take a moment to tell you that you, as always, can rate, review, and subscribe to the Show Before the Show on iTunes. We have climbed like 40 spots in the baseball podcast rankings on iTunes since we started this show back in April, which is super cool. And right now, as I noted on Twitter this week, we have 6 reviews on there, or 6 ratings. We're at 5 stars, which leaves us only like 16,000 5-star ratings behind Adele's new album, which I got and would rate 5 stars. But so go on there, rate us, review, subscribe to the Show Before the Show on iTunes. And big thanks to all of you who have tuned in throughout 2015. We're looking forward to being even bigger and better and bolder and all those kinds of things in 2016.
And special shout out to the family of our guests.
Yes.
But when I reached out to Aaron Blair, who you'll hear here very momentarily, he asked, where can my family find the podcast and listen
Very
in?
Cool.
So welcome to the Blair family, the Blair extended family, whoever may be listening. Please, subscribe to us on iTunes. Get more of this talk. Hopefully you've enjoyed it so far. Hopefully you enjoy the interview and the interviews to come. Now that once you subscribe, it'll automatically pop up in your iTunes feed.
There you go. To the Blair family and everybody else, in case you will be back next week. We'll be back the week of New Year's, but we know things get busy. So if you miss us next week, happy holidays to all of you. And with that, we'll send it on over to Aaron Blair, the newly minted number 4 prospect in the Atlanta Braves organization. A very wild last couple of weeks in that system, in the Arizona Diamondback system. We'll get the read on what it feels like to be traded, to be headed to a new organization with a whole lot of top-level talent that is steaming toward the big leagues and that brand-new ballpark coming up in 2017 in Atlanta. Aaron Blair is on the docket for the Braves, and he's on the docket for episode number 37 of the Show Before the Show podcast. The offseason does not necessarily mean that things calm down for anybody throughout the world of minor league baseball, especially for guys like our guest on this week's edition of the Minor League Baseball podcast, the Show Before the Show. The newly minted number 4 Atlanta Braves prospect, Aaron Blair, joins us from sunny but I guess chilly Las Vegas, Nevada. Aaron, what's up, man? Welcome into the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for joining us. This has had to have been an insane week or so for you. This obviously is a deal that I think shocked the majority of the baseball world, and for you guys being at the epicenter of it, you and Dansby Swanson, the 2 top prospects in this deal, along with Ender Inciarte, shipped from the Arizona Diamondbacks to the Atlanta Braves. Let's just go with kind of the immediate reaction for you, because this obviously is a life-changing week. I mean, you go to the Diamondbacks a few years ago, 36th overall pick. Now all of a sudden things look markedly different going into 2016. What has this last week been like for you, and kind of being at the center of a huge story and knowing that this next season will be kind of a different feel from what it's been so far in your pro career?
It was exciting. I was sitting here playing video games with my brother, and I saw on Twitter that the Diamondbacks had acquired Shelby Miller. And then about a minute later, my agent calls me, and he told me that they made a trade, but he wasn't sure for who. And then, the next 24 hours, my phone was constantly on the charger. People are calling me, tweeting me, talking to my family, my fiance, my brother, my parents. It was just the first day or 2 days was, crazy. But, looking at it now, I was grateful for what the Diamondbacks, they gave me the opportunity to start my career. And, I'm really looking forward to getting with the new team, with the Braves, and, seeing how this season will play out for me.
take me through what it feels like to be traded. The way that, I kind of always, whenever I've talked to somebody who's been traded, it's not something that really anybody else in any other career path goes through. Like, neither of us is going to walk into work one day and they're going to be like, all right, we traded you to a different website and you got to report somewhere else to work. But I mean, especially the fact, like you noted, the Diamondbacks give you your chance. They get you started in your professional career. And then all of a sudden it's, obviously their stress right now is to win at the major league level with the moves they've made. That's the main focus for Arizona. But for you guys, I mean, this has got to be tough to a large extent because so much changes, and it's exciting, but I would imagine there's some bittersweet feeling. What is the emotion like when you hear from your agent, when you know you're involved in a deal like that? All of that looking back in the last few seasons to now know that chapter of your career is over.
Yeah. Going from one organization to another, there could be similarities, but more than likely it's going to be, a huge change. You're going to meet a whole bunch of new people, while on the other side you lost friends that you won't play with again. And, each team is different of how everything's ran and, what each organization does to make themselves better. So, going into this, you got to have an open mind and, you got to know that you're dealing with new people each and every day, and the people, the coaches and the staff that are going to be helping me are, still learning what I can do. And so like you said, it is kind of bittersweet to leave, what you were used to for 2.5 years starting my pro career. But, on the other foot, it's exciting to get another opportunity with another team. And, I'm looking forward to it. Hope I make the team.
Yeah, and speaking about like being part of a new organization, what do you kind of know about the Braves coming into this? I mean, a lot of the talk this offseason is that they're acquiring all this young talent, all these prospects, kind of like yourself, and to kind of rebuild and grow like a really young, good team, hopefully a year or two down the line. So what do you kind of know about them, the way they operate, and have they reached out to you and talked to you at all yet, personally?
I know a couple of guys that have played with the Braves or are currently playing in the organization. And I've heard nothing but great things about the organization. I played 2 years against the Mississippi Braves in the Southern League when I was in Mobile. And they were always a great team, and with the trades that they got, me, Swanson, Sean Newcomb, I know Tyrell Jenkins, that right there, that's a lot of, young upside players, not to mention, some of the younger pitchers they have with Touki Toussaint, who Diamondbacks traded him away last year. So, the goal is always to win, but, it looks like they're trying to win in 2 or 3 years. And, I'm excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, and when you mention names like that, like Jenkins and Newcomb, I mean, those are all guys kind of on almost a similar level to you, upper minors, seem to be ready to knock down that door. How do you kind of approach that in terms of, knowing you could be working toward a major league job to start the year this year, and there's all these other young guys you're going to be competing against? How do you kind of go into that first spring approaching that kind of situation? I won't change anything of what I've done coming into the last 2 spring trainings I've had. I'm going to get my work in, and, I'm going to go try and make the best team possible, whether that be a big league team or a AAA team. All I can do is, take care of myself and continue to work harder and, push myself along with the other guys pushing me. So, I'll just stay the same person I have been and, God willing, make a team.
Aaron, when the trade went down, very shortly after that trade went down, Touki Toussaint reached out to you and Dansby Swanson on Twitter, and it was kind of a sort of a tweet heard around the minor league world, I think, because when people saw it, they wondered really what the emotion was behind it, because these trades have left a lot of people, I think, scratching their heads. I mean, that's 3 first-round picks, you included, to be dealt away from the Diamondbacks just over the last 6 months or so. What do you think? I mean, what's the the feeling among you guys who have now all gone through this from the Diamondback side, and especially being able to know somebody like Tukey, who a very highly regarded prospect, a very high draft pick, he's been through it now, so you guys can sort of lean on him. What do you think his motivation was behind that tweet, and how has that been for you and Dansby to be able to talk to somebody who's been through this a little bit and already gone to the same organization as where you're headed?
Yeah, Tukey's one of the guys I've talked to in the organization, and he said, organizations are different, but he liked it, and I told him it's great to be part of the organization, and I'm looking forward to working with him again, like I did last spring training. And I saw the tweet. I didn't actually respond. I actually sent him a text message, and it was pretty popular tweet. But I can't necessarily tell you what he was thinking, but it's good to have all these young players, especially 3 guys from the Diamondbacks over the past, like you said, 6 months, to all be back in the same organization with trades. So, I'm looking forward to working with Tukey again, and, looking forward to meeting and working with Dansby.
Yeah, and kind of to pivot back a little bit, just to kind of talk about, some on the field stuff. Looking back at your 2015 season, split the year between AA Mobile and AAA Reno. Solid numbers, both spots, 160 in the third innings. That's, a good load for a guy in the minor leagues, at least. It seemed like a solid year out of you. What did you kind of, or how, looking back on the year now that you've been removed from it a little bit, how did you kind of view your season, and especially moving to the PCL? Whereas you are playing in a lot more hitter-friendly environments, and you perform pretty well there. So how do you kind of view, the 2015 as a whole, and particularly that first taste of AAA ball?
Well, the year, I couldn't be more pleased with the year, how it went, how I competed and got better each time I went out. My best start of the season was probably my last start of the season against Sacramento. But, it was all about the time in between starts. We're working with the pitching coaches, watching other people work, learning from, especially in AAA, learning from the older guys who have been around and have some significant big league time, learning from guys like that. And, going to the PCL, you've always heard horror stories about, every fly ball is a home run. In my first start, I think I gave up 9 runs in 4 innings, and I was like, oh, what's going on? And then from there on, I just kind of worked on keeping the ball down, and ground ball numbers went up, and you can't hit a home run when you're bouncing the ball to the shortstop. So when I got to AAA, that was my main goal, and I was very pleased with how I finished the year.
Yeah, and like I said, and as you said too, it was a solid year all around. One thing I kind of wanted to ask about though was, in 2014, your first full season in a D-backs system, you had 171 strikeouts and 150 in a third innings. That's a very, very good strikeout rate, playing at high A, double A, and single A. This year, your K rate dipped a little bit, 120 strikeouts and 160 third innings. Was that just a product of going up against some tougher competition, that tougher PCL environment, or was there something you did differently in your approach to this year? How did you kind of approach the strikeout numbers dipping a little bit?
The year before, it's not like I was necessarily trying to strike everybody out. It just so happened to, get more results on strikeouts. I think a lot of it had to do with, in 2014, I started the year in low A and went to high A, and I got a lot of my strikeouts in those 2 leagues. And then when I got to double A, the strikeouts kind of dipped in 2014, and then starting this year, strikeouts aren't necessarily a big part of my game. I like to get the ball on the ground and try and get 2 outs with 1 pitch. That's the type of pitcher I am, but also people look at strikeouts as, a dominating number, and, just facing the better hitters, they know what's going on. They've watched the game, they've watched film, so, the strikeouts will be there, but, I can't say that anything went differently, or it's just sometimes the ball didn't go the right way for me, I guess you could say.
Aaron, let me ask you this. And this is actually a question. I wrote up our preseason preview of the D-backs organization, and one of the things I talked to some of the player development guys about was you and Braden Shipley came in together and kind of moved in lockstep a lot throughout your minor league careers. And I would imagine that feels pretty cool in a lot of ways to be able to go through the growing pains of what it's like to get into pro ball with somebody who is not only going through it at the same time as you, but really has a lot of the same things at stake at the same time as you. Braden goes with a 15th overall pick in 2013. You go 21 picks after that. And you guys are so successful at so many levels, pitching together in 2013, your debut seasons at Hillsborough and South Bend. Following year, South Bend, Visalia, Mobile. Last year, a little bit of time together in Mobile before you moved up. What is that like to have a relationship with somebody like that, to get to kind of grow together, bounce stuff off of each other and all that? What kind of a security blanket does that give you getting into professional ball and going through your first couple of seasons?
It's excellent to have somebody like Braden. Like you said, we were together on every team we went to up until the second half of this past season. And he's a guy for the last 2.5 years who we've always worked off each other, and we try and outwork the other, so we're making the other person better. And like you said, we have the same type of stuff. We both work really hard, and just being able to go through 4 levels with him, that's not everybody has somebody like that. And like you said, drafted in the same year, we knew that all throughout our career we would be step by step with each other. And he was a great friend. He still is a great friend. I wish him nothing but the best. And I hope his career turns out great.
All right, Aaron, we'll leave you on this one. Trying to look a little bit towards the future, the immediate future. As you talked about, talking with us here today, you're looking to try to break Major League camp with, Atlanta coming out of your first camp with them. You haven't experienced the majors yet. What do you think you need to do in this spring training, or what do you think you need to show them specifically, or something you're working on this offseason, anything like that you need to do to just break through, that major league wall and get that first major league start in 2016, whether it's, first month of the season or July, whenever it may come? What do you think you need to do or show the Braves to show them you're ready for the majors?
I don't think I need to do anything, outside of who I am. I don't need to go try and be like a Shelby Miller and, just throw fastball and, throw it by people. I think I just need to show them who I am and, what type of pitcher. And, so they made the trade for me. So I think they know what they're getting in return with me. I'm just looking forward to getting to camp and, working and competing with all the other pitchers going for a spot in the rotation. I'm just looking forward to, building off my career from the minors and, hopefully at some point this season to get that first taste in the big leagues.
He is Aaron Blair, the newly minted number 4 prospect in the Atlanta Braves organization. You can follow him on Twitter. He is at @A_Blair19. He's also a Giant, so if you see him hanging around the Atlanta area this year, 6'5", 230, probably stand out to you a little bit. Aaron, congrats on a great 2015, a hectic, crazy offseason, I would imagine, but best of luck from all of us here, and we'll be watching you in 2016 as some big things lay ahead for you down in the South.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Once again, a really big thanks to number 4 Atlanta Braves prospect, former number 4 Arizona Diamondbacks prospect Aaron Blair. The big right-hander, again, is on Twitter. He is at @A_Blair19. And with that, we're going to move on into some in-house conversation with our good pal Benjamin Hill, who joins this edition of the show before the show. It's we're nearly Christmas time. Today, Ben, you and Sam just going off the rails with Star Wars baseball jokes. It's the holiday. It's a festive holiday mode around here.
I suppose that. It's also a mode of, late December, feeling the year end, and it's tough to stay focused when you're writing about minor league baseball year round. I think we all do our best, but sometimes you just got to stop and write some jokes and clear the brain a little bit.
For me, the jokes were just a way of staying away from Star Wars spoilers. So it's like keeping my mind in that area, but not like work relevant, sort of.
What are the Star Wars nights in 2016, you think, going to be markedly different because now there will be so many different avenues from this movie for everybody to go after?
I was wondering that, but I doubt it because right now is, in a lot of cases, when you need to lock down those theme jerseys.
Oh, interesting.
And, a company like OT Sports or Wilson that has the licenses, I'm not sure with things being so close to the vest. I don't know, what would be available for them to license. That's a good question, but I'm not sure what the turnaround time would be on things that reference the new movie in terms of Star Wars Nights 2016. Who knows? Maybe there's agreements in place just to have the license without knowing what it is, and then as soon as it's available, it'll be available. It's a good question. I did not look into it.
So put a pin in that, Star Wars nerds. We'll see if there is. I didn't mean that in such a. That sounded so derogatory. I really didn't mean it in such a bad way.
What are you trying to say?
People like Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to say that Star Wars is extremely overrated, and I don't enjoy it, and I'm not going to see the new movie. So.
This does not lend itself well to our instant reaction Twitter culture, but I don't really have an opinion either way on Star Wars, which is weird because I have an opinion on everything.
So
leading into this, Sam was
spectrum represented on this podcast.
Yeah, we do. We have one in a very indeterminate person, one big fan, and one it's overrated. We got the whole. We're crossing all the aisles here on Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. You enjoy it, go enjoy it. I have nothing against a Star Wars fan, but I do feel this time of year, with the new movie coming out, there's this just kind of expectation that everyone likes Star Wars and we're all in this together. And I kind of feel like this is just mediocre to me. And that's the way I've always felt. But, other people feel differently. And, in this diffuse, fragmented culture we live in, if Star Wars can unite everyone and get our country talking about the same thing,
yeah, it's true.
More power to Star Wars.
Yeah. That is how I feel. And again, this won't make me any friends in the minor league baseball front offices, but that's how I feel about the World Cup. Which, I got nothing against the World Cup. It's cool. It's fun. But, everybody's an expert when it's World Cup time. And, none of us knew anything about soccer prior to it. Well, except for people like Sam who are smart about everything. Neither here nor there.
That's not a very big Venn diagram.
I'm just one of those people who.
Anyway,
I'm just bitter about everything. All right, so let's dive into it. It's the two most prolific writers on the site, arguably, are on this podcast with me right now, and I'm not one of them. Sam Dykstra, of course, and our good pal Benjamin Hill. Ben cranks out stuff nonstop, and so it's tough to nail down the best and the brightest and the most memorable for you, I would imagine, Ben, throughout an entire year. And even we got an email the other day. It said, highlight some of your favorite stuff that either you've written or other staff members have written throughout the season. And so I was going back through the news archives and everything, and my email ended up being I don't know, it felt like it was 50 stories long because there's so much good stuff that's out there, but it's so easy to forget a lot of that stuff. So, Ben, when you look back on a season, how do you even begin to quantify the things that stood out most to you?
Yeah, it's tough, especially as this job has evolved for me and I'm on the road a good portion of the season and there's just so much to write about. It all kind of blurs together. And I struggle with this all year round. I visit a place and people are like, what's the best food you've ever had at a ballpark? What's the best ballpark period? What's the greatest between inning contest? And I'm just kind of because there's just so much out there in minor league baseball, 160 teams. I keep saying this. I need to create a cheat sheet to carry around where I have my answers ready to go. And the same thing applies to my own work. There's so much of it, and it covers such a wide range in the world of minor league baseball that it's tough for me to be like, oh, I loved this or I didn't like this. I think I'd say that I'm a very good writer and who does excellent work year round and that everything is equally awesome in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of make it very specific then instead of, opening it up broadly to the entire year. I'll just kind of bring up a story that stood out to me personally. Maybe because it's some closure. The game itself was really interesting. We wrote it through many different ways, but the closing of New Britain, New Britain moving to Hartford, you were there for the last game in New Britain. It's a walk-off win, very exciting. Now that you're a couple months away from that, how do you kind of reflect on that day and the piece you wrote about that?
Yeah, that was August 30th. The last Rockcats game ever played at New Britain Stadium, and that was one of my favorite pieces that I did this year. And I do have pieces that stand out, and contrary to the arrogant assertion I made earlier that everything is awesome.
Arrogant Lego movie assertion.
Yeah, there you go. But being in New Britain for the last game, the team is moving to Hartford, and that's only 12 or 13 miles away. But, if you're from that area, which I'm not really, but I'm familiar with it enough, the distance between Hartford and New Britain is pretty it's more than you'd think in terms of, you know, the stadium that they were in to the stadium they're going to. In terms of the kind of fans that are going to go there, there's a lot of traffic in that region, very populated. So the Rock Cats crowd is not going to necessarily translate to Hartford. So when I saw the last game in New Britain, it really was the end of an era. It wasn't just kind of like, yeah, the team's moving up the road, who cares? It was like, no, we're saying goodbye to this very distinct thing. So having the chance to talk to, you know, the broadcasters, the longtime scoreboard operator, you know, the 80-some-year-old guy in the fans who's the mayor of the ballpark, all those things, you know, really stood out, and I'm always grateful for the chance to cover that sort of event that transcends far beyond, you know, the box score and really gets to why a team means something to people, and to talk to the people who you know, have a deep-rooted emotional connection.
One of the things that was really cool about the On the Road stories this year is you got to go to the Midwest League and cover a lot of stuff in the Midwest League. I don't want to say that's a forgotten league, but I think sometimes a lot of those stories slip under the radar, even though it really fits that stereotypical billing of what minor league baseball is. Small towns, old ballparks in a lot of circumstances, really, really tight-knit communities around them. And what I thought was really neat was the way that you were able to encapsulate that in a bunch of different cities throughout the Midwest League, which you do everywhere, but in the Midwest League it seems like they almost sort of fit that Bull Durham mold still very much to a T. So in Quad Cities, there was a good story. In Kane County, there was a good story. In Clinton, it was fascinating to read about the way that city has almost built a lot of itself around the identity of the Lumber Kings. What were some of the things that stood out to you from those pieces?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Midwest League for those reasons you just articulated, and a lot of the smaller Class A leagues, smaller towns. You know, you're going to get better stories there, I believe, than you are maybe going to a new ballpark, you know, in Charlotte. There's just quirkier people and a smaller environment. It's kind of easier to explore. So, I mean, one of the favorites I got out of the Midwest League this year is in Cedar Rapids, getting to meet 71-year-old Cedar Rapids clubhouse manager Rody. That's what everyone calls him, R-O-A-D-Y. His real name is Ron Pline. And he literally lives at the ballpark. He doesn't have a driver's license. He stays at the ballpark until 2, 3, 3:30 in the morning doing the laundry. So when he moved with the team, when they relocated from Quad Cities to Cedar Rapids, the new ballpark included an on-site living quarters for this guy. So his apartment is literally right next to the laundry room. So during the season, he stays up as late as he has to, doing all the visiting clubhouse tasks, and then just goes to bed in the apartment next door. And that's just one of those quirky things that you just kind of think, like, wait, what? This 70-some-year-old guy lives at the ballpark, and, you know, that's his life. Baseball's his life. I think he's a man of pretty simple tastes, and that's what he likes to do. So as far as I'm concerned, I've never met anyone else who literally lived in a ballpark.
Yeah, and kind of speaking about, you know, baseball lifers and guys who spend their entire lives around the game, and, you know, older guys too. I remember this story. You brought it up when we were talking earlier about stuff, you know, that you remember from the season that kind of stood out. Was this Norfolk Tides, you know, executive vice president Dave Rosenfield, the guy who makes the IL schedule by himself. What do you remember about your discussions with him and what he was like, and, you know, all these months later, what still stands out to you about him?
Well, meeting Dave Rosenfield, that's a minor league baseball legend. I mean, he's been with the Norfolk Tides, and, you know, before that, the Tidewater Tides, all the way back, you know, over 50 years back when they were a Carolina League franchise. So when you talk to him, you're getting a perspective and a voice that you just don't hear in modern minor league baseball. He's not at the stadium as much as he used to be. He's in his late 80s. Unfortunately, after I visited him this summer, he was diagnosed with bone cancer, I believe. So I don't know, you know, how he's doing right now. And that's why it's so important for me when I go to these ballparks to talk to the lifers. Last winter meetings, Bill Valentine, the legendary salty, irascible owner of the Arkansas Travelers, he was named the king of baseball. And I got to talk to him for 2 hours. Basically because I had to, because once that guy started a story, he didn't stop. And, you know, he passed away over the ensuing year. And I feel by talking to these people, by recording their stories, by writing about them, it's really an honor and a privilege to be able to, you know, get a sense of generations past. And I have a lot of respect for the ones who've been able to keep their careers going, you know, through their 70s and into their 80s. And, you know, Dave Rosenfield in Norfolk is one of those guys. Dave Rosenfield has been making the International League schedule And he made this year's, in 2015, in his mid 80s and his late 80s. He's been making the International League schedule since, I believe, 1963, when he was a young guy at a Carolina League meeting. And the league president at the time said, anybody have any comments on this schedule? And Dave Rosenfield, he didn't like it. And, he thought the Tides were getting short shrift. And he raised his hand and said, a monkey could do it better. And the league president, his name was Bill Jessup, he said, all right, then do it. And so because he was young and brash and a little rude and said a monkey could do it better, he got handed the job, and he's been doing it every year since then for over 50 years. And, he's old school. He lays out huge sheets of paper and pencils, and it's just like a giant puzzle. And he said that, he still likes to do it to a certain extent. And it's just kind of amazing to think in this era that we live in with how far technology has come, that the International League schedule, I'm not sure if he's doing it for 2016, but the International League schedule for the entirety of all of our lives, going back even further than that, all the way up until the year 2015, was created by this one guy who just did it, with sheer brute force, pen or a pencil and an eraser and a bunch of paper, and think how many lives that impacts, because that's when the fans go to the game, how the players travel, how the teams have to plan for their own schedules and what days they're home and away. And it's all this one guy who's worked in baseball for over 50 years. It's a great story.
That fits very well, bookends this conversation very well, because that's one of the ones that was one of my favorite stories of the season that I totally forgot to include in my list. So I'm going to have to add an addendum to my list of the best stories of this year. But that one's fascinating, and you're right. I mean, it's not just, he comes up with a schedule, this is the way that it looks for fans. It's all of that. It's team travel. It's the way the clubbies work. It's the way front office staffs have to deal with a night game with a day game that follows, or a school kids day or something like that, where you're sticking around for an extra 2 hours because you got to help the crew clean the trash up off the concourse. That's the kind of stuff that people don't really get all goes into this. And for one guy, I think we all assume it's just a giant room with a bunch of computers that spits out a bunch of schedule options for all of these leagues. That's not necessarily the way it goes. And these are the kind of really cool storylines that you dig up, Ben, that I think the vast majority of people would not even realize is the case.
Yeah, that's kind of my MO as a writer in covering the minor leagues, is just trying to find those stories that you don't even really think about. You don't even think about, like, you just take it for granted. And then when you do meet the people who are behind it, or the people who do things that you never really even thought was a job in the first place, it becomes fascinating to me. And I love taking those angles and visiting these small towns and middle-sized cities all over America, and sniffing them out. And sometimes I'm more successful than others, but I think at the end of the year I can look back on it and hopefully always be able to find some good ones.
Ben also tweeted 2 hours ago that he's currently working on an article that gives him a legitimate reason to mention Norm Macdonald's roast of Bob Saget, so be on the lookout for that.
Definitely be on the lookout for that. One of my favorite videos of all time. Yeah.
That's a plug if I've ever heard one.
That'll be fantastic. Ben, this is one of our favorite conversations to get to have, is looking back on 2015 or looking back on any season, but the stuff that you come out with this year it's better every year. The Ben Hill standard climbs higher every season, and thanks for coming on to give us a little preview. The year in review stories coming up next week, right?
Thanks. I appreciate your kind words.
Absolutely.
I'm getting older and fatter and generally more worn down and less impressive physically, but I hope that is balanced out by doing better and better work each year.
Should have tried like me and just never been impressive physically in the first place. Then you wouldn't have that problem.
If I knew then what I know now.
Ben Hill, go follow him on Twitter. He's at Ben's Biz, and check out the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com, and the story coming to milb.com next week. And Ben, we'll talk to you then, man. Thanks.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
With just days remaining in 2015, we're 2 weeks as of this recording, 2 weeks away from 2016. How on earth? Like, if I still wrote checks or, like, papers in school, I would have just gotten used to writing 2015. It's 2016 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember particularly in terms of checks, but that's what always used to throw me off. You get back from vacation, you're sitting in elementary school, you write down the date at the top of every paper. I still don't entirely understand why we did that. I think it was just to ingrain you the idea of, like, you're supposed to remember what the date is. But anyway,
it's a flat circle. Yeah,
you would totally write, at least when I was in elementary school. It's 1996. No, it's not. It's 97. I feel old now. No, you're still 6.5.
6.5 and 96, 97.
Yeah.
Man.
Try not to give away my age.
He's youngins on the minor league baseball
90s
podcast.
baby.
Not me. Not me. So with that, we are going to put the finishing touches on this edition of the Show Before the Show. Again, you can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Head on over there and give us your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns. You can also do that, podcast@milb.com. You can shoot us a note there, and we'll get to your questions and whatever else you have going into 2016. So that will do it for this edition of the show. But like I said, we're not going away the next couple of weeks. Sam, what do we have on tap for folks over the next 2 weeks as we roll through the final stages of the holiday season?
Yeah, so the way we're going to kind of do this coming up the next 2 weeks is we're going to, as we've said, it's the 2016 is coming up. That means New Year's. That means, everybody gets together and parties and, toasts at midnight and does the whole thing, and everybody makes their New Year's resolutions. Or I shouldn't say everybody. Some people do, some people don't. But what we're going to do is we're going to make wish lists for all 30 organizations the next 2 weeks. We're going to split it up. 1 week we're going to do the AL teams. The next week we're going to do the NL teams. We're just going to come up with quick little hits of wish lists for what we think each of the 30 farm systems is going to be looking to do and accomplish in the 2016 season. Whether it's, they should deal some of their prospects, or is it something a specific prospect in a system should do, or is it develop more pitching? We'll go down the line. We'll make it very quick. We just want to pop into your news feeds, let you have something to listen to while you're traveling, wherever you're going, wherever you're coming back from. And we'll make it kind of fun for you guys to lead us out of 2016.
Slide into the DMs.
Slide into the DMs, which sounds incredibly creepy. And please don't take that the wrong way, everybody.
All right, everybody. We will talk to you next week. And if we don't catch you until after the holidays, you tune in post Christmas or whatever you celebrate. I've got my Festivus poll up in my main room this week. So enjoy whatever your celebration entails. If you travel safely. You can take us along with you on iTunes and wherever else you find the Show Before the Show podcast. Sam is on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I'm at Twitter at Tyler Mon. Minor League Baseball you can follow at MILB. And, of course, Benjamin Hill is at Ben's Biz. And until next week, when we start breaking down some things headed toward 2016, enjoy the rest of hopefully not freezing too badly wherever you are, and we'll talk to you then.